How to never get friend-zoned again. If you're a man and you want to find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, but you find yourself struggling with creating a man-to-woman connection, perhaps getting second or third dates, after you maybe initially thought that the first date went well, but then you receive a text along the lines of, I just didn't feel the spark, I think we're better off as friends, then this video is for you. Wayne Dyer, one of the biggest legends in the entire field of personal development, who unfortunately passed away, I don't know, however many years ago, gave a presentation, a speech called The Power of Intention. And that's what I want to start with. Things in life start. They don't end with. They end with very technical strategies, but they start with intention. If you want to make things a little bit more intimate, move things forward romantically in a respectful and slow way, it starts with your intention first and foremost. Most of you as men don't even fully allow yourselves to go in there and put the balls on the table, so to speak, to show yourself in a masculine way, because it's safe. If you only communicate in a friendly manner, that's a very safe thing to do. Because if I never really convey my intentions, if I never really make her the offer to go on a date, or even when I'm on the date, to communicate in a more outright masculine way, well, then I can never fully get rejected. Then I can at least internally justify for myself that, well, I didn't really try all the way. Because if I were to try all the way and then I would get rejected, well, that would sting, wouldn't it? So, first of all, we got to allow ourselves to fully have the intent to communicate in a romantic way. I'm going to go in there and I will not communicate like a friend. Now, I think it's very important that we look at what that actually means. So, again, intention comes first. I will no longer be that friend, because that's not your intention. Your intention with her is not just to be friends. It's to see whether there's a potential romantic future. Maybe you can build a family together. Maybe you can build a life together. That's what you want to find out. And romance is the first step. You got to be lovers first and friends later. Not friends first, like a lot of people believe. Utter misconception, completely lost. It doesn't work. So lovers first, friends later. Yeah, it works some of the time, but really it's better to be lovers first and friends later. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be that guy who's overly weird and romantic and just puts too much pressure on women. You don't want to be that guy. You also don't want to be, imagine a spectrum, overly romantic, like, hey, what's going on? What's going on, girl? Hey, so yeah, you want to come back to my place? I really like that. Like, that's weird, okay? That's a bit too much. I've actually seen shit like that on YouTube. It's hilarious. I'm not in the business of talking bad about people, but we need to be able to criticize the idea. So, as Jordan Peterson says, the purpose of thinking is to let the ideas die instead of you. So we need to separate the ideas from the person. But that idea is a bit of a foolish one. So you don't want to be on that extreme, but you also don't want to be this, hey, so how's it going? Oh, okay, cool. Tell me something. So what do you do for work? Oh, you're a lawyer. Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, really interesting. So you watched a lot of Suits, huh? And you can feel that you're not grounded. That it's coming from a validation-seeking place. It's coming from a very weak place. And you don't want to be on that spectrum either. So what can you actually do to create a man-to-woman connection? And this goes very, very deep. Just a couple of very important pointers and points of inspiration for you here today. Eye contact is the most important thing. Now, you got a very intense eye contact, like this, with a little bit of, first of all, breaking of eye contact, and smiling. Because imagine we were on a date right now. I'd probably feel uncomfortable going on a date with a male ginger, but hey, you never know. You never know. No, but imagine you're on a date with somebody, you're a woman, and somebody stares at you like this. At some point, it's going to get quite uncomfortable. So you do want to hold relaxed and steady eye contact for 5 seconds, 3 seconds, sometimes even 9 or 10 seconds. But then you also want to break it. It's very important that you have that pressure on, pressure off. And what I mean by pressure on, it's not actual pressure. It's just tension. Tension on, tension off. So you look at her, and you have those moments where even just by the way you look at her, she realizes, oh, this guy means business. She has to feel that even just by the way you look at her, that you want to see whether there's a potentially romantic future inside or not. She gets to decide that, but the offer is communicated so clearly, there shouldn't be any doubt. After 30 seconds, latest a couple of minutes of meeting you, she should know exactly what you want. There should be zero doubt in her mind, and it starts with eye contact. So you hold relaxed and steady eye contact, you don't pull your eyelids back, you don't stare the whole time, but there's moments where she's talking and you just look at her like this. Really interesting thing. I'll tell you something about myself. So I was married to a woman who wasn't right for me. Long story short, explained that in other videos, but on the day of my wedding, I was not grounded. First of all, I was with a woman who wasn't right for me, right? We just weren't compatible. And I didn't even allow myself to not smile. Really interesting one. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. But I felt social pressure to smile. Like, people look at me and I'm like, I felt this pressure to smile and be happy and be nice. And don't get me wrong, I like to laugh a lot. I like to have a lot of fun. And I would say I do smile a lot. But it's not the thing, but the place it's coming from. Are you smiling because it's a genuine, authentic expression of where you're at that point in time? Or is it because you feel that that's what's expected? And if you don't live up to the expectation of that particular woman, or parents, other people, that you'll get judged, you won't get loved. Right? That's what it was for me. And I felt this need to smile all the time. I didn't even allow myself to just look at somebody with a bit of a stoic face. I didn't even allow myself to look at that person that way. And not in an aggressive or weird way, just in a normal way. It was that extreme that I felt the need to smile almost all the time. And the day after the wedding, I had a panic attack, had to call the ambulance. And because it was interesting, right? They had salmon. This is actually really private stuff that I'm sharing with you here. And I probably shouldn't be sharing this, but I want you to understand that this whole dating thing is not just fun. It's also very meaningful and serious, because if you end up in a relationship with a woman who isn't right for you, you're not listening to your own needs, life can suck quite hard. So I called an ambulance because I thought I was choking on salmon. There was no salmon in my throat, but it was one of the symptoms. Call the ambulance, they tell me your airways are perfectly clean, everything is fine. You just have extraordinarily high levels of anxiety. Okay, well, long story short, that went on for a year and a half. Oh, like more so half a year at that point. Explained in other videos. Part of the reason was obviously me making a commitment for life to a person that wasn't right for me. But it's also, that actually came as a result of me putting on a show. Me not communicating my personality authentically and effectively. And when we talk about creating a man-to-woman connection, going back to intent before we go back to the technicality, it's about tapping into the lover archetype, the 4 archetypes, the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover. And it's just one part of you. And the lover is a part of you. Romance, sexuality, that is a part of who you are. You just haven't allowed yourself to channel that. There are technical ways, and we can speak about some of them more. And we teach a lot of that in way more detail in my coaching program. Obviously, apply for a free initial consultation call if you want us to help you with that personally. But again, that's already within you, the part that can create it. So there's an external skill set that you need to learn, like anything. You're not born with the ability to do coding. It doesn't matter how much you meditate, how much you align yourself with your higher self. You will not magically manifest the ability to write JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, C++. You're not going to be able to do that. That's an external skill set that you'll have to learn. But at the same time, that romance, that's part of you, has always been inside of you for hundreds of thousands of years. However long humanity's existed, it's been a part of human nature. So you can allow yourself to channel that. But it starts with not wanting to please, with wanting to make people feel good. There's a difference between pleasing and genuinely wanting to be kind and making people happy and contributing to fulfillment. I'm not perfect, but I'm genuinely trying to make people happy and to contribute to fulfillment, to reduce unnecessary levels of suffering and to contribute to fulfillment. But pleasing is such a superficial, weak thing. It doesn't help anybody. Pleasing somebody in the moment doesn't do anything for them, because basically you're just lying because you're presenting a false version of who you truly are. And then they can't connect with you, and you're acting as a role model for them to keep faking shit, so it doesn't even help them. So, going back to that, eye contact, relaxed and steady. Then, you can start to build physical contact. You always got to be very respectful, very slow. If you're on a first date, you can start with a fist bump. And then you're going to get one of three reactions. You're going to get a positive, a neutral, or a negative. If you do a fist bump and she does this, that's pretty neutral. If this is you and this is her, and she kind of like pulls back just a tiny bit, tiny micro expression, you immediately realize she's not comfortable with you building physical contact. And that's a very non-invasive way of doing that. And you immediately stop that. You keep building things, building connection, interaction verbally, and then after 15 to 30 minutes, you can go again for a high five and see if there's more comfort. You got to be very respectful, very slow when you build it. Very important. Or you get a positive where she almost like pushes in a little bit. You're like, oh, good sign. Same with a high five. Positive, all right, like a neutral would be kind of like this. A negative is like she pulls back a little bit, or she's like this. Or a really positive one is where she either pushes a little bit or she does this. Well, if you say hello to a woman in a bar and she does this, you can almost like pull her gently in a little bit and put her arm around you. Always be in touch with what's going on. If she's ever uncomfortable, you immediately create space. And this whole idea of space is a very important tool for creating attraction in general. So we got eye contact. We got this whole idea of building things physically. That goes a lot deeper. But the idea is positive, neutral, negative. Those are the three types of signals you're going to receive. Also verbally. And when you get a positive one, well, then you can keep building things. If it's neutral, well, be slow. And if it's negative, you immediately create space, or maybe even apologize straight away. Oh, sorry about that, right? So you build it step by step. The next thing is, if we look at the realm of verbal communication or verbal man-to-woman connection, one of the things you can do, which we talked about in the last video, is simply compliments. Most of you don't compliment at all, or you compliment way too much. First of all, stop using generic compliments. Saying something like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, it doesn't work. A beautiful woman knows she's beautiful. A beautiful woman knows she's attractive. That's no news, it's generic. But if she's explaining something and she looks kind of cute, then you can say, borrow this line. This is a line. I'm not the biggest fan of lines, but this one works extraordinarily well. Use it, trust me. You can simply say, you have the cutest facial expressions when you're trying to explain something. Trust me, steal this line. It works extraordinarily well. You have the cutest facial expressions when you're trying to explain something. That's cool. Or one that I really like is, I really like your posture. You have really good posture. She's like, all right, okay. That's an interesting one. You know, it's a very good compliment. Compliments let her know that you're intimately interested in her. Or you can simply say, you go to the gym, or is that just good genetics? You know, like a bit teasy, gotta find your own way. Certain compliments you'll use, I'll never use, and there's certain compliments I'll use, you'll never use. So there's a degree of authenticity, but overall, you gotta become more comfortable with even using these things. I used to be uncomfortable with even holding eye contact. I used to be uncomfortable even expressing my interest verbally. And that's why, remember, intent is the most important thing. You gotta just have the intention. And that's not just something you do once, and then it's sorted. You got to rebuild and remind yourself of the intention that you have for this interaction over and over again. And the more you practice, the more dates you go on, the more successful you'll be. And you do that for X amount of months. And then you find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, and you're finished. Remember, this is a finite game for you. You're not going to do this forever. But if you want an extraordinary result, which a great relationship is, you got to be willing to put in some work for a short period of time. So, they'll recap. We got eye contact. We got the physical contact. Then we have the verbal ways of escalating. And again, this goes a lot deeper. I just want to give you a couple of points of inspiration so you can derive certain meta principles from this. The idea is when you're sitting across from her, when she's telling you something, a really good one, by the way, this is not so much about man-to-woman connection, but this one is about attraction in general. Little gold nugget that I'm going to give you here. Ready? So when she tells you something, I'm doing this is my hobby, my opinion on this is such. A lot of you guys go, oh, wow, okay, that's great. Okay, cool, interesting. You're doing this head nod? And by the way, this is something that works extraordinarily well in normal social interactions. And sometimes that's perfectly fine if she's actually telling you something that you really find exciting. If she's telling you something, you're like, wow, this is actually really cool. I actually really respect that. I think that's awesome. That's good. But if she's telling you something that you're kind of neutral towards, then you don't need to overdo your enthusiasm. You can simply say, okay, this word is so powerful. My father's wife is an expert at this. If you were to ask me right now, or if you were to tell me something, for example, how many dates have you had in the last 6 months? And I'll go, or like, I'll ask you this, and you say, 3 or 4. And I go, okay. Don't you immediately feel judged? It's good. I mean, it's nothing. 3 to 4 dates in 6 months is nothing. Somebody like yourself should have at least a date a week to have a sufficient amount of choice to find the right girlfriend life partner. 100%. But even just by saying, okay, it creates a little bit of tension. It shows you're not approval seeking. So there's this meta concept of intent and not needing validation. And there's a lot of, goes way deeper, a lot of very technical ways in which this manifests. This okay is a very powerful one. So use it. So you're in an interaction and she tells you something that you genuinely feel kind of neutral towards, and you just go, okay. Okay. Most men can't even do that. It builds so much attraction because most men so desperately crave her validation. They're just way too excited, and she realizes, wow, that's fake. I've just told him about this more or less benign thing, and he shows a little bit too much enthusiasm. He's a little bit too reactive. Comes across as fake. She realizes this must be your only date in 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. I thought the date went well. And then you receive this text that goes, you know, I really like you, or I had a good time, but I just don't think this is going to go anywhere. I didn't really feel the spark. Wish you all the best. And you're like, what happened? Or even worse, you're trying to convince her via text. You're trying to convince her via text to keep dating you when you already messed it up on the first date. It's hilarious. And I'm not judging you. I've been there. I'm really not talking from a high horse by me sharing something very vulnerable a couple of minutes ago. I hope you understand that whatever mistake you're making, I have made in the past. However hard you suck, I have sucked worse. And you have to understand that there is nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing. It is really just a skill set. Being able to create a man-to-woman connection, being able to convey yourself as a lover, it's just a skill set. And I want to talk about this balance again, because sometimes you see guys, again, being a little bit too extreme. Overly sexual, oh my God. And other times guys aren't like that at all. But you do need to look into her eyes at some points during the date and almost visualize quite a physical connection that might ensue later on that night or a couple of dates down the line. You almost got to visualize it. Obviously, be present. Don't zone out completely. But for a moment, allow yourself to visualize it. Not coming from a needy place. But if you can allow yourself to enjoy the presence of desire within your own body while not needing it, that creates a transference of emotions. It really does. But only if you're coming from a non-needy place and you really don't need it. You got to be absolutely perfectly fine with her walking away right then and there. Because you know you have a process that supplies you with a bunch of high quality dates and options, which is approaching women in real life, a skill set, and online dating, simply a skill set. Since you have that, you can value the process over the individual interaction. That principle is so powerful. So much of the suffering you're experiencing in your dating and relationship life, you install apps, you delete them, you have these highs, you have these lows, comes from not having a systematic process with the same inputs. If you were to understand that the results you're currently experiencing in your dating and relationship life, lack of dates, lack of second dates, right? Or not the quality that you want, whatever, comes down to the inputs. When things went well, you had different inputs. Yeah, there are statistical occurrences, right? That happens. But more often than not, if you don't have the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, it's because either the process isn't there, or it's a flawed process rather, or you simply haven't put in enough work. You need to make a commitment to introduce yourself to X amount of women per week. How can you call yourself a man if you don't have that skill set? Really, how can you call yourself a man if you don't even have the ability to walk up to a woman in a Whole Foods or in a bar, completely sober? It doesn't have to be a club. During the day, at night, wherever. Introduce yourself and create a connection out of nothingness. I want to read you something from a one-on-one client of mine. A text that I got today. Pardon me. Most of the stuff that we do is online, yes. But we also do in-person events. We do group boot camps, and I did a one-on-one boot camp. Perhaps you watched the Barcelona vlog. And he was out with me last weekend, and he sent me this text. He says, I'm still smiling about your incredible ability to fully engage women. Love it. A master at work. And it's absolutely true. I am, without a doubt, the single best in the world at it. And even just this level of confidence, is this based in reality? I don't know. I don't fully know. I'm definitely one of the best. I don't know anybody else who teaches the system that we teach. It's quite a German, quite a systematic process. Yes, yet with the ability to let interactions develop quite organically. Because as I said, I'm not a pickup artist, right? This is not about lines or scripting stuff. But every now and then having a little bit of structure at hand to guide the conversation forward, having certain tools and games that you can play on the date that create attraction like nothing else is absolutely useful. So when I say I'm the single best at the world at this, to help you find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, then that comes down to results. I've worked with men from 30 plus countries from all around the world. I know my skill set. It is really an absolute and utter superpower. That doesn't mean that I don't get rejected. Of course, everybody gets rejected. But if you watch me do 10 approaches, perhaps 20 approaches, you're going to see some magic. It's going to blow your mind. And you don't ever really have to do approaches to find the right one. You can just use online dating, which is something that we teach in the coaching program as well. But again, the character growth that you will get from learning to approach women in real life, creating connection out of nothingness, creating that man-to-woman connection. Gave you a couple of examples here today on how to do that. That will instill in you a sense of confidence that you just cannot fake. The world is such a beautiful and abundant place. I mean, look at this beautiful sunset right here. We're on top of Dublin, literally looking at the Irish Sea on Dublin. Sometimes in life, you just need a little bit of a different perspective. And what I'm hoping that I can convey to you here today is this idea that you can learn a skill set and you can change your behavior without changing who you are, because you don't have to become a different person. I'm not a different person than I was with my ex-wife. I'm at the core still the same person, but I dramatically changed my levels of confidence, completely transformed my communication skills, and I've studied the dynamics of attraction. And so this is not about faking something, becoming a player, none of that stuff. But it's about tapping into who you really are and channeling a way more masculine side, because that's what women ultimately want. When she tells you something and you look at her, and just by the way you look at her, she realizes that you mean business. Even just your tone of voice changes. Doesn't mean that I'm putting on a deliberately deep voice. Like, I'm not faking that. But even just the way the tone of voice changes, at certain moments in the date, she realizes, oh wow, that's a man who's in front of me. And she needs to feel that. She needs to experience that, because otherwise she'd be dating a woman. Otherwise she'd be a grinder. It should be on Grindr as a lesbian. Perhaps she's bisexual, that's fine. If that's what you're looking for, not a problem. Absolutely a possibility. But most likely the woman that you want to be with wants to be with a man. So you gotta show those behaviors. Just understand, most men communicate in quite a feminine way. And I always emphasize that there is nothing wrong with feminine energy. In fact, we should lean into feminine energy. I cry when I watch Interstellar. No issue. That's fine. Don't ever cry when you're having a conflict with a woman. She will immediately lose respect for you. But I have no problem showing emotions when I watch a sad movie. I usually cry during movies when it's something around friendship or family, right? And it doesn't even have to be like a sad moment. It's just usually joy, right? So that's no problem. That's never reduced attraction in my relationship with Fernando over the last 4 years at all. Not a problem. But only because Fernanda experiences me in very masculine ways. In really, really masculine ways. And we have other videos where we talk about that. But just understand, the warrior, the mature version of the lover, that's all inside of you. You have that potential within you. And again, it's an external skill set that you will have to study. You can use free resources. If you want to learn it super fast, step it up, use coaching, apply for a free initial consultation call. There's paid resources as well. But whether you use free resources or paid resources, I implore you to commit yourself to this journey of improving your dating life for a short period of time to find the right one. Life can be so much fun, and it will transform all areas of your life. If you become more raw and honest in your interactions with women, and one manifestation thereof is this man-to-woman connection, that rawness and honesty is going to transfer over into your business relationships, your relationship at work, and the friendships you have with other men, and family relationships. You will start addressing things that you don't like. You're like, hey, please don't do that anymore. You as a man, you've never even, if a woman did something you didn't like, you've never even uttered the following words. Don't do that, please. You've never even uttered the following words. Don't do that, please. You've never said that in your life. She does something you don't like. You say, don't do that, please. You've never even said it like that. Think about that. Most likely, you've never even said the following words to a woman who did something that you did not appreciate. Please don't do that. Don't do that, please. I don't like that. If you can't even set a boundary in a respectful yet firm way like that, why the hell should she respect you? Remember, women always map current behavior towards future behavior. So, if you're not standing up for yourself, what should make her trust your ability to stand up for her and the family at some point in the future? Your behavior right now is a representation of potential future behavior. So you can become exactly the person you want to be. It's really possible. It's truly there for you. It can be so much fun. The relationships to other men are going to transform. Your life is going to transform. And remember how we started this whole talk today with intention? That's what I want to bring you back to. I would like you to center yourself and just ask yourself for a moment, what's my ultimate intention here? What's my final outcome? Happy relationship, having a family, somebody that I can support, somebody who supports me. She doesn't have to be a top model, somebody that I'm physically attracted to, gotta have the same values, maybe somebody who's family oriented, whatever is on your must-have list. Okay, that's my final outcome. Great. If that's my intent, am I willing to do what's necessary? You can have what you want in life. The only question is, are you willing to fulfill the necessary criteria? Are you willing to meet the conditions? That's the only question you have to ask yourself. Am I willing to meet the conditions that are required for success? If that's my outcome, having a happy relationship, a family like that, am I willing to go through the process of learning to build a man-to-woman connection, of changing my communication, while knowing that it doesn't mean me changing who I am, because if I go to a funeral, I'm going to communicate very differently to the way I communicate in the gym. I'm still me. I'm just a competent man who's able to tailor his communication depending on what the context demands. Am I willing to do that or not?